This is Lynda Wright. Welcome to Macon Memories. Today is June the 13th, 2008, and I'm here with Professors Wallace Martin and Brian Moores.
Hello, Lynda and Wallace. This is Brian Moores speaking. I came to Randolph-Macon first in 1980. I had had a teaching experience before that. I taught at the University of Hartford from 1970 to 1974. I taught at the George Washington University for a year in D.C. Then I went to Oglethorpe University in Atlanta, Georgia. I was there for about 5 years, and then I came to Randolph-Macon in the fall of 1980. So I retired in 2005, so I had 25 years of service. Wallace?
Hi, this is Wallace Martin, and hello, Brian and Lynda also. I came in 1971, fresh out of graduate school from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Got my undergraduate degree there and my doctorate, so I'm pretty much of a Chapel Hill born and bred kind of guy.
Tar Heel.
Tar Heel, all the way.
Even a born Tar Heel, if I recall correctly.
That's right, from Eden, North Carolina. My wife and I both, hometown sweethearts.
This is Brian again. I was born in Portland, Maine.
I'll start out saying a little bit about how I came to Randolph-Macon. It was kind of an interesting process. I think I'm not sure what it was, but I think something had happened the year before. I don't think all of the biology faculty were too happy, and several of them left. And I think the chair at that point had been perhaps asked to sort of step down. We brought in a new chair, Dr. John Funderburg from Florida Southern College, and I came here straight out of graduate school, had never taught a course in my life, had never stood before a group in my life, and I was quite scared, I can tell you.
Now, there was an old-timey biology faculty member who died pretty soon after I got here. Well, maybe 10 years after I got here. And he moved to Arkansas with his wife. I can't remember his name.
That was Dr. McClurkin.
Was he chair when you took
He was chair. Well, he was the chair before Dr.
Irving
Funderburg.
J. McClurkin?
Irving J. Yeah, I think his son went here, and McClurkin's had quite a history here. He was tough as nails. He was loved his students, great guy. Used to take the group down to Jamaica, one of the first traveling colloquies, I guess. They had quite a bit of fun down there.
Probably had a few rum and tonics.
Probably so. And he always brought back a lot of interesting biological specimens from there. Never got to go, though. I might just say a couple of words about how I got started here. As I say, I was pretty much scared to death. I had never taught. And the way I sort of learned was I never really told anybody this, but I tried to find out who some of the good teachers were around campus. And people like Dr. Panel and Dr. Offenbacher.
That's Burnell Panel from the philosophy department.
Right.
Yep.
And, of course, Schuyler Miller and people like George Brown Oliver. All of these people I at least had heard from students were pretty good. And so I tried to stand outside their doors and listen when nobody was watching. If someone came down the hall, I would, of course, move on and look like I was in a big hurry to get somewhere. But
Eavesdropping.
And I tried to at least pick up a few pointers from some of these old guys.
Let me interrupt you just for a second,
Sure.
because I find that fascinating to hear. I didn't know this, as did, I guess, nobody else. But I would certainly not say that your teaching style, from what I've seen you in action quite a bit, I would say that you are not the same as any one of those people. And it really is a lesson for all of us. Listen to what other people do and learn from them, but still be yourself. And Wallace is himself. When he walks into a room, you know you're going to get who Wallace is. He's a man of integrity.
Ah, shucks, Brian. Well, I think that's true. If anything, I've tried to be sort of an amalgamation of lots of different people, even including your old friend, Professor Stanitsky, who also was a very good teacher.
Well, Conrad Stanitsky hired me at Randolph-Macon. I had known him while I was at Oglethorpe in Atlanta because he got his Ph.D., I believe, at Georgia State University, which is in Atlanta. Oglethorpe is just outside Atlanta in the town of Chamblee. It's a small liberal arts college like Randolph-Macon. I had gotten to know Conrad through the local section, the Georgia section of the American Chemical Society. And, Wallace talks about his mentors back then. Conrad was certainly one of my teaching mentors as well. Not only back then when I got to know him, and he ended up teaching at Kennesaw State College, which is now a university, I think. But we maintained our relationship over the years, and when this job came available, I applied for it, and hey, I could work for Conrad Stanitsky. Well, he only stayed a few years after that. The siren call of a deanship came to him, and so he left the college in, I think it was 83, maybe?
I think so.
83. So I was only here a few years, but he sort of helped bend my twig to create the tree that I am today, in a way. So I'll echo some of what Wallace has just said.
And he was a great mentor, I'm sure. Yeah. Where did he go? He went somewhere up in Pennsylvania.
He went to Mount Union. No, he did go to Swarthmore. No, not Swarthmore.
It's in... No.
No.
It's college
come on.
in Lancaster.
It's in Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh, this is embarrassing. It's a very good school.
Yes, it is.
But he was there.
Franklin and Marshall.
That's it. Exactly.
He was assistant to the president there, and
yep.
Then I heard a little rumor that he and it was either the president or dean decided to do away with the fraternity system there or something, and which was not too well received, perhaps, and they moved on to other stations.
That was 25 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So probably they're enlightened since then. But then I think he went to Mount Union College.
That's right.
Became dean, but didn't enjoy being a dean. He wanted to be in the classroom. That's where he really built. That was his gift.
Yeah.
So I think then he went to the University of Central Arkansas and retired from there, but then he went back teaching at F&M.
Having come here in 1971, I guess I'd like to say something about these courageous young women who came at that time. That was the first year that we went co-ed, and the girls soon found themselves in a lot of situations that perhaps the college had not really thought about the need for as many bathrooms and dormitory setups. It was coming into a men's college.
Potty parity was a thing of the future.
Yes. And we had a lot of lessons to learn in those days, but we were very accepting of them and they of us, and I think the transition went much better than especially after that first year. But they some of them should be given a couple of extra degrees for having put up with us during that time.
We've had some really strong graduates from that period.
Oh, we have.
Maybe they had to be in order to survive in that environment.
Yeah.
Pat, what's her last name? I forgot. She graduated in 75, I think. She was a trustee. Not still a trustee, though, I don't think.
I'm sure that was.
I don't think she was a bio or a chem major, though. So you came in the same year of coeducation.
I did. It was quite an exciting time, Brian. It was in many ways. Dr. Payne was the president then, and I'm sorry.
Actually, he'd only been there for a year.
I'm sorry. It was Luther White.
Luther
was
White,
president
yes.
then. And Luther and Howard Davis recruited me, and always loved them both.
Talk about Howard Davis
gentlemen.
a little bit. I didn't get to know him as well as I should have, I guess.
Well, Howard was, in my opinion, perhaps the best, one of the best deans that we've ever had.
Mm.
He was, of course, he came from the faculty, and he looked at things as a faculty member, and of course, all faculty love deans who are who's
One of their own.
yes, but he was a strong leader. At the same time, he had sort of a laid-back way of handling things, and
He seemed a very humane person.
he was just a great guy. And
The dean who hired me was Elton Hendricks, who came, I guess, in the late 70s. Did he come in while Luther was still on the throne?
yeah. He did, and he was another strong leader, I think.
He's been president of Methodist College in, is it Fayetteville or Jacksonville?
No, it's in Fayetteville.
Fayetteville for the last 20 years, I guess.
Yeah. He's done a great job. He was an excellent dean here, continued to build a strong faculty, and I think he'll probably always be remembered for that. A very noble kind of guy.
I thought so, too. I
Yeah.
admired him a lot. Now, I came very soon after Liddell Payne became president. I think he became president in February of 1979. I came about a year or so later to interview for the job. And so he and I sort of came up together in a way, and I always loved him, respected him. He had a touch that, well, every president offers something, I think. Every leader is a leader in some different way. So I always liked Liddell. But actually, my favorite president at this point is our current president, Bob Lindgren. He has a real touch, a personal touch. Put him in a crowd of people of any kind whatsoever, no matter class, race, or anything else, age, he'll talk to them and listen to them. He's a very good listener. So, in a way, I'm sorry I'm not teaching for him right now.
Yeah, I came soon after Luther Wright was president. It was kind of an interesting time for the college. We had quite a few financial problems in that day and time, and I think, unfortunately, Luther sort of got caught up in that period. There were a couple of times when there were no faculty raises. The faculty almost unionized at one point. And
That would have been in the 70s?
it was in the early 70s, and the faculty and the trustees were not exactly getting along too well, and it sort of fell on Luther's shoulders, I think, to bring us through that period. And I think he did a very good job. He was a man that just had been he was an alumnus of the college, and he did his absolute best to bring us through a very difficult period.
I think his ties to the college have not really faded over the years. He
No, they
comes
haven't.
back pretty regularly, doesn't he?
Great guy.
There's no bitterness, no anger about anything that happened between him and the faculty.
No, I don't think so. Certainly, from my perspective, looking back on it, I think he was a strong leader, and he was presented with some real challenges that almost only the solution of time could really bring about. And it's a time that I hope that we'll never have to visit again. Sometime when I think of the sort of the contentiousness of the issues between faculty and the Board of Trustees at that point, it was a very uncomfortable time for the college, and things have changed so much since then. We have a wonderful relationship, I think, with the trustees these days, and it's something we all, at least in my generation, we all learn from.
I think I mentioned this to you, Lynda, earlier. I think the best years of the college are ahead of it. We have strong leaders now. We have endowment is increasing by leaps and bounds. The faculty has never been stronger. Students have never been better. Teaching methods. I'm getting excited about problem-based learning for a course I'm going to teach next fall. This is typical of what goes on here. The student is number one here. If you look at what motivates people, the people who make the biggest difference in the college are those who are motivated by what's best for our students, not for their career, not for anything else except our student body. That's what a small college, I think, is all about. When I was at Bates College, I learned about that, learned how hand cultivation could make a huge difference in my life. So I wanted to do that when I came here, too.
Well, that was a real learning experience for me, Brian. I didn't have that at UNC. Went to only large universities, and to me, the small liberal arts college was just a complete surprise. And frankly, it took me a while to just see the strengths, and at this point, I can look back and say, I wish I had had the opportunity, because I think I was the kind of student that would have really thrived in an atmosphere like this.
Yeah, yep.
And
you've thrived as a faculty member, that's for sure.
Well, I've tried to treat the students as I would like to have been treated. Not that I was mistreated, but this idea of having friends, students as friends, was really a new concept to me as an undergraduate, and it's made all the difference. It's just made teaching an absolute joy.
Even in your biology department, you have really good examples of Art Conway, for example, is one that I could lift up right away as somebody has made very close friendships that have lasted for years and years. You, of course.
Well, I think that's sort of part of that hand cultivation you're talking about that goes back a long way.
It's part of the culture of the place. It's part of the DNA.
Yeah.
Is that a good DNA, a good biological expression?
I like that, yeah. And we replicate.
We've
replicated ourselves.
There's students out there that are doing what
copies.
We do. That's right, yeah.
Speaking of those copies, and again, I go back to some of the old-timers here that sort of I tried to learn from. There's always been a group of, it seems like, leaders, people who were just absolutely committed to the college, people like Wade Temple and you go back and they just essentially gave their lives to the college.
You know Bill Hesse very well?
I did. I know
in the physics
Bill
department
very well.
Tragically killed in 1985.
Tragically killed. Yep. A man who gave just everything to the college. One of the best teachers that I've ever seen. And he was.
We have some unsung heroes among our faculty too. They don't win too many awards, but they're there in their trenches doing what they need to do to succeed, and students appreciate that more than you can imagine when they finish up.
Yeah. Someone said something about the equipment. Back in 1971, it was also a year that we moved into the new science building. And
that's in quotes.
Yeah, since we're have grown. I remember that when we first moved in, almost every freshman biology student had an office, and today
every faculty member may not have an office.
That's right. We're talking about a new science building,
but that gets us into the strategic plan. Maybe more about that, but
that's true.
Finish up talking about this.
But we moved into a building that really had very little to no equipment. We did have a new set of microscopes, which were retired.
No electron microscope.
Oh, Lord, no. It was really a building, sort of almost a hollow shell. Very little equipment.
This was in 72?
71.
71. So you came with the building and the women.
I did. The building, the women. It's a good thing, too. I I taught for a semester in the old biology building, and I remember part of the ceiling falling during class one day. So
was that
Pettyjohn Hall?
Oh yeah, I never saw it.
Well, it was a strange building. It had an old observatory on the top that cannonballs actually were used to rotate it, and it was I remember when they tore it down, they found out that there were two large logs. We always wondered why. As you go up on the second floor, you could sort of feel the whole floor sort of like spongy, And they were really just two large timbers holding the second floor up.
Oh my gosh!
About a foot in thickness.
And those timbers were probably saturated with formaldehyde. Well,
probably were, as were many of the old faculty.
Actually, when I came to interview, I got to go to Pace Hall Now, I came in 1980, so we already put up the new, what was called then, the new Copley Science Center. But I got to tour Pace Hall as a sort of a history lesson in the chemistry department, and those floors were probably saturated with mercury, I would guess, because the analytical labs were there, and Frank Boldridge, who was my predecessor, more or less, in teaching physical chemistry, had hung out there for generations, who knows how long. So it was Pace Hall back then. Now it's Pace Armistead.
Right.
I guess Armistead was an alum, probably. So, but that building has not been demolished. It's now a beautiful art gallery and all those kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories of old Pettyjohn Hall. I remember we had a departmental a lamprey roast every spring. For years, Professor McClurkin had a sort of a little get-together where they would go down to the South Anna River at a certain time of the year and collect these awful-looking fish-like things that, you know, the lampreys have a sort of a run, very, very similar to salmon each year.
Or eels.
Yeah, well, I guess they're sort of a primitive vertebrate.
Are they an exotic species?
Not so. They have these suckers, and they're just awful-looking things. But anyway, McClurkin would go. You would catch them at night. He would take a group of students up there, and these things would try to swim upstream, and he would catch them, bring them back. And,
They're anadromous?
And he would eat them. I mean, he would make lamprey croquettes.
Were they small, short fish?
Oh, no, some 2 or 3, about 2.5 feet long.
No kidding.
Very strange-looking beasts.
They're in the Great Lakes.
A lot like mud. But anyway, we would cook them up at a lamprey roast, and we would invite the various people, the chair of the medical department from MCV up, and we would have this lamprey roast, the annual lamprey roast every year. And
did they continue this after McClurkin left?
I'm afraid not.
He was the
his
spark
love
plug.
of lampreys and his ability to catch them was it sort of went with.
There are no lamprey lovers that survived his tenure.
I'm afraid not.
How did they taste?
Mud, like mud. Not a lot of great eating there, but I suppose it's one way. Well, anyway. But we were talking about equipment. I remember when I came here to be recruited, Professor McClurkin bragged to me. He says, "Well, you know, we just bought 4 new lenses, all immersion lenses for the microscopes." And I was I could hardly believe what he said, because, you know, you can't really see microbes without all immersion very well. I wondered how they'd been teaching micro for all those years without an all immersion lens. So and we built from there. And over the years, we got grants, and as did chemistry, and
The grants have really exploded. I mean, instrumentation in chemistry I can't keep up with it. It's unbelievable. In fact, the office I used in January of 2008 when I taught food chemistry is now taken over by a couple of instruments because we ran out of room for them. I may be able to sneak out a few square feet in there for next fall, but who knows? So we're running out of room, and so I think the capital campaign that's about to begin, I think, is going to try to account for some of that physical space need that Wallace was talking about earlier.
I have one special memory, speaking of microscopes. Our first electron microscope, I guess we got it in about 1981, and I have some very good memories of going down to Duke University to pick it up. Wade Temple and I drove a pickup truck.
Oh, my gosh.
And the microscope fell over. We had it standing upright coming up 95, and it sort of did a 45-degree angle turn. And so I rode part of the way holding it in the back of the pickup truck up 95.
Like a baby.
Yes. But this was back in, I guess it was before the days they would arrest you for things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But Wade was one of those leaders who he just loved the college.
He loved to get scrap materials from federal surplus.
That's right. We made many trips down to bird field.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's still many examples of that
Yeah, unfortunately.
in various places.
And they're PCB saturated capacitors in the physics department to prove it.
Yes.
Actually, we got rid of them about 20 years ago, so they're gone.
But that's the way
You could talk about the history of electron microscopy at Randolph-Macon and write a little paper on it, actually.
I suppose I could.
Because nowadays we have a really state-of-the-art one, I think, don't we? Or more than one, even.
Yes, we've had 3 or 4 in that time.
It's hard to keep up with them, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, our big instrumentation purchase in recent years was probably an NMR. We were one of the few small colleges that had a 400 megahertz NMR machine, and the motivating factor behind that was Sarah Schreiner, who's my chairman now, and one of the spark plugs of undergraduate research. That's a topic we could spend a lot of time talking about. Wallace has been extremely active in coaching, mentoring students in undergraduate research, and to me, this is one of the waves of the future, really. Even as we sit here speaking in early June, the SURF program for 2008 has begun. I don't know how many faculty are involved, but it's a significant number. 30 faculty and quite a few students.
That's a funny thing. I think that research or undergraduate research is something that's always sort of been a part of the Randolph-Macon education in the sciences, and it's undergraduate research was really not well received necessarily by all colleges. I would say that primarily some of the Great Lakes consortium type schools were the ones that really got things going, and perhaps always had it to a certain degree.
Was St. Olaf a good example of that?
Yeah. St. Olaf and places like that. But, even at Randolph-Macon, where undergraduate research, I think, certainly took second place to teaching for many, many years and was not necessarily considered a part of teaching. Outstanding students were often given the chance to do research projects and availed themselves of the opportunity, and I think it helped them a great deal. And then later on, when it became sort of a new paradigm in science teaching, we were ready to go, and we had a lot of senior projects to look back on over the years and to sort of serve as a starter material for knowing where to go. I remember in 1980 we inaugurated a program in biology that we required each graduate to do a senior project, and that was a little unusual, and I think perhaps for that reason I was asked to join the Council on Undergraduate Research, which was a national group trying to foster undergraduate research, and I learned so much from that by going to other small schools and seeing what they had accomplished in the sciences over the years, and to try to bring some of that knowledge back to Randolph-Macon.
And whether a student actually does research in graduate school or goes on to a teaching career, research career, it helps them to create independence,
Oh, it does. It really does. I still, Brian, you were talking about the course that you'll be teaching. I'm still sort of an old dinosaur when it comes to teaching methods, new pedagogies that sort of try to bring the laboratory and bring it into an equal with, at the same time, with lecturing was a very difficult thing for me to do because, I had always believed that lecturing, a good lecturer, was sort of the key to learning, and new kind of pedagogies that sort of tend to bring together both lab and lecture I've had a difficult time with
but now your department,
learning.
You've led this department into the biology department into leadership in that way, though. I mean, you can
that's true, but
point to quite a few faculty that are doing it.
That's true, but I'm just saying it was difficult for me because all of my heroes, my teaching heroes, were they did what they did by moving students through their lectures and integrating laboratory or research and lectures was.
In a way, they were modeling
Yeah.
the behavior of a good scientist.
They were, and it's. I think it's the proper way to learn.
Yep.
But a lot can still be said to the old lecture method.
A lot depends on the individual, too.
That's true.
What are you good at? What really gets your juices flowing? What are you passionate about?
Yeah. Well, I still think, at least in my own experience, that I was turned on to biology. Well, I don't know. I guess I started out with chemistry as I was blowing up things in graded school. Even. I learned about you could go to the drugstore and buy saltpeter and charcoal.
Ooh, yay.
And
that's gunpowder, my friend.
I know,
Yep.
and I loved it. I loved chemistry. I just couldn't do the math, so that's why I became a biologist.
PCAM was not for you.
No, but these days you've got to be a good mathematician, be a good biologist also. So,
well, I should say something before we get much further along here about the environmental studies program. I got interested in the environment when I was a little kid, like Wallace did, although I didn't actually feel a tug toward chemistry until after I got to Bates and found out how good a department it was. I just liked being outdoors, looking at nature. Bird watching was a big thing for me. So observational biology was sort of in my genes, you might say. But then when I got to Randolph-Macon as a physical chemist, I taught PChem. But then I got more and more interested in environmental issues, and so there was always a demand for teaching new January term courses. So for the first time, I taught an environmental science course in January of 1987. That's 21 years ago. Thinking, this is something I have a passion for. I could probably create a course out of this. Well, a lot has happened in the last 20 years in environmental education, and now we have the major program with Chaz Gowan, the most recent strong leader there, and Mike Fenster, the new chair. They are really professional environmental educators, doing a really good job, and the student passion is there too. We've been able to build up a pretty good bunch of majors. So I think the role I played in helping get that program started was one of the more meaningful things about my history at the college.
I would agree, Brian. It's been a great program, and I think it's very important for us to look at other programs like that in the future, such as biochemistry and neuroscience. Like
neuroscience is currently a hot topic within Copley Science Center. We don't have time to really talk much about it, I don't guess. But we have some strong people with strong views who are neuroscience oriented. So
this is a little perhaps I'm not quite sure how to state it, but I just wanted to end by saying that my association with Randolph-Macon has been the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. Teaching here for some 35, 36, 37.
Going on 37.
Yeah, years. I've seen the college change a lot, always for the best, always for the good. And I think what you're saying is right, Brian. I think the best days of the college lie ahead, but not to say that we have not done some just truly wonderful things. We've had a lot of just outstanding, noble people come together over the years, give their lives to the college, and we produced some outstanding, noble young people who are now have grown up and are giving back to the college. It's a wonderful thing to see and to have been part of.
One example of that is Preston Bryant is coming back to speak to my first-year colloquium next fall on September 11th, actually, interestingly enough. The 7th anniversary of 9/11. He's the Secretary of Natural Resources right now in the Governor Kane's administration, has been for the last, 4 years now. He's coming, and when I asked whether he could come, he didn't blink an eye. He said, I'll come give a lecture to your FYC about greening of college campuses in Virginia. So this is hot off the presses, actually. His administrative assistant just told me about that. But he's an alum who's who knows what he's going to do after this? He's the class of '86. He's still a young man, 40-some years old.
One final thing I just might mention, as I said, I have been to a lot of small colleges, visited their campuses, and I think it's probably true to say that there's a certain spirit here at Randolph-Macon that you find it at a lot of small schools, places like, Trinity and places like perhaps Hope College. There's sort of I would call it sort of a Christian spirit, perhaps, that draws from our early roots with the church that has continued, and which helps young people to find their way and to understand some very important values.
If you look at the mission statement of the college, I've forgotten what it says exactly on that point. The moral and intellectual, develop students.
Yeah.
Moral and ethical. Yeah, develop the character of its students. And as the lay leader of Duncan Memorial Church in Ashland, I would echo that, certainly. I mean, we do have the affiliation, and President Lindgren has expressed his view that we ought to continue and if possible even strengthen that connection to the denomination.
And I think it is growing.
And there's a huge overlap between what we believe as Christians and what the college mission is. It's not a liberty university, but there's a lot.
Nor does it wish to be.
No. So thank you for pointing that out.
Enjoyed it, Brian.
Yes, you too, Wallace.
Let's do it again.
That sounds great to me, my friend.
See you then.
Thank you so much, Professor Martin and Professor Moores, for making memories here with us today.